You are not the church. It's become sort of a trend in modern Christian culture to say the church is not a building. I am the church. But is this true? Actually, no. There is no place in the whole Bible which refers to a single individual as the church. And in fact, there are many places where the church is likened to a body with many parts, each having their own function and working together. We see this in Romans 12, 1 Corinthians 12, Ephesians 4, Colossians 2. The emphasis is always on the fact that a single body part is useless apart from the rest of the body, and that all the body parts are meant to function together as one. In the book of Acts, we see the church established as a communal gathering of believers on the Lord's Day, and they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and the fellowship, to the breaking of bread and prayer. This gathering that was established was and is the church. So while it's correct to say the church is not merely a building, it is not merely a population of believers either. It is the gathering of those believers in one place for worship, fellowship, prayer, giving, good works, and the reading of the scriptures. And it is to be done regularly, and we are instructed not to neglect it. And let us consider how to stir one another up to love and good works, not neglecting to meet together, as is the habit of some, but encouraging one another. But that doesn't mean we need to actually go to an actual church, does it? Didn't Jesus say that all it takes is two people meeting together to form a church? Well, no. Jesus did not say that. Here's the quote people will take out of context in order to justify not gathering with the church. For where two or three are gathered in my name, there I am among them. Well, case closed. That seems simple enough, right? Jesus is with us as long as we have two or three gathered. But wait, does that mean he's not here when I'm by myself? No, I know he hears my prayers even when I'm alone, so could he mean something else by this? If we start basing entire doctrines on isolated statements from Jesus, we are in serious trouble, folks. In Luke 14, Jesus says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, and wife and children and brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Now, does Jesus want us to hate all of our own families and even our own lives? Now, when we look at the larger context of what he's saying, we see that he is saying we should not let the things we love most become a distraction or a hindrance from following him. So what is the larger context of Jesus' statement about two or three gathering? Well, it turns out that Jesus makes a distinction between the church and the two or three people within the passage itself. What Jesus is talking about here is when there is a brother who has sinned against you, there is a three-step process to confronting that brother. First, you go speak to him privately. Second, you go with one or two brothers, which would make you a gathering of 2 to 3. And then finally, you bring it before the entire church gathering. Now, let's really think about this. Jesus gives 3 steps here. Step 2 is a gathering of 2 to 3 people, but step 3 is the church. But if he's telling us that 2 to 3 people is the church, what does step 3 even mean when he says to bring it before the church? I mean, that was already done in step 2, right? Saying that 2 people form the church causes this entire passage to make no sense. Jesus is talking here about coming together in prayer for a person in sin, binding that sin with discipline, releasing it with forgiveness, and he promises to be in the midst of 2 to 3 witnesses to confront sin by his authority. That's it. This principle actually comes from the Old Testament law, which required 2 to 3 witnesses to adjudicate certain crimes. There are literally no other passages in the entire Bible which refer to 2 or 3 believers as a church. None. 0. Every church addressed in the epistles is a large assembly. Every church referenced in the book of Acts is a large assembly. Every church addressed in the book of Revelation is a large assembly. Jesus' followers themselves were a large assembly. 2 to 3 people in a private gathering for prayer and Bible study are definitely good. I mean, that's a wonderful thing, but it's not a church, period. And it doesn't fulfill the instruction from Hebrews 10. All throughout the New Testament, there are instructions about who is qualified to lead a church, how church is to be conducted, how believers are to submit to the elders of the church, the roles of men and women and families in the church, and it just goes on and on. But there are a ton of anti-church people out there who want to throw away the entire New Testament and pull this one statement from Jesus completely out of context to try to suggest that he approves of them forsaking the assembly of the church. Don't do that, folks. You need the church. And actually, the church needs you too. You say, well, the church is full of hypocrites. It's all good, bro. We got room for one more. Come on, get back to church. Let's worship the Most High God. Grace and peace in Jesus' name.